Okay, we're going to start with telling my cat some stories. And this story comes from a collection in the Mabinogion, but it's part of the Arthurian myth cycle, and it's called The Lady of the Fountain. King Arthur was at Caernarfon upon Usk, and one day he sat in his chamber, and with him were Owain, the son of Urien, and Cion, the son of Clydno, and Kai, the son of Cana, and Gwynvar and her handmaidens at the needlework by the window. And if it should be said that there was no porter in Arthur's palace, there was none. Gwylvar was there, acting as a porter to welcome guests and strangers, and to receive them with honour, and to inform them of the manners and customs of the court, and to direct them who came to the hall, or to the presence chamber, and those who came to take up their lodging. In the centre of the chamber King Arthur sat upon a seat of green rushes, over which was spread a covering of flame-coloured satin, and a cushion of red satin was under his elbow. Then Arthur spoke. "If I thought you would not disparage me," he said, "I would sleep while I wait for my repast, and you can entertain one another with relating tales, and obtain a flagon of mead and some meat from Kai." And so the king went to sleep. Cinon, the son of Clydno, asked Kai for that which Arthur had promised them. "I too will have the good tale for which you promised me," said Kai. "Nay," answered Cinon, "fairer will it be for thee to fulfil Arthur's behest in the first place, and then we will tell thee the best tale that we know." So Kai went to the kitchen and to the mead cellar, and returned bearing a flagon of mead, and a golden goblet, and a handful of skewers upon which were broiled collops of meat. Then they ate the collops and began to drink the mead. "Now," said Kai, "it's time for you to give me my story." "Cion," said Owain, "do thou pay to tell Kai the tale that is his due." "Truly," said Cion, "thou art older, and art a better teller of stories, and hast seen more marvellous things than I. Do thou therefore pay Kai his tale." "Begin thyself," quoted Owain, "with the best that thou knowest, and I will do so," answered Cion. "I was the only son of my mother and father, and I was exceedingly aspiring, and my daring was very great. I thought there was no enterprise in the world too mighty for me, and after I had achieved all the adventures that were in my own country, I equipped myself and set forth to journey through deserts and distant regions. And at length it chanced that I came to the fairest valley in the world, wherein were trees of equal growth, and a river that ran through the valley, and a path that was beside the river. And I followed the path until midday, and continued my journey along the remainder of the valley until the evening, and at the extremity of the plain I came to a large and luscious castle, at the foot of which was a torrent, and I approached the castle, and there I beheld two youths with yellow curling hair, each with a frontlet of gold upon his head, and clad in a garment of yellow satin. And they had golden clasps upon their insteps. In the hand of each of them was an ivory bow, strung with the sinews of a stag, and their arrows had shafts of the bone of the whale, and were winged with peacock's feathers, and shafts also had golden heads. And they had daggers with blades of gold, and with hilts of the bone of the whale, and they were shooting their daggers. A little way from them I saw a man in the prime of life, with his beard neatly shone, clad in a robe, a mantle of yellow satin, and round the top of his mantle was a band of gold lace. On his feet were shoes of variegated leather, fastened with two bosses of gold. When I saw him, I went towards him and saluted him, and such was his courtesy that he no sooner received my greeting than he returned it. Then he went with me toward the castle. Now there were no dwellers in the castle, except those who were in the one hall. And there I saw 24 damsels, embroidering satin in a window, and I tell thee, Kai, that the least fair of them was fairer than the fairest maiden thou hast ever beheld in the island of Britain, and least the lovely of them was more lovely than Guinevere, the wife of Arthur, when she has appeared loveliest at the offering on the day of the Nativity or the feast of Easter. They rose up at my coming, and 6 of them took my horse, divested me of the armour. 6 others took my arms, and washed them in a vessel until they were perfectly bright. And the third 6 spread cloths upon the table and prepared meat. The fourth 6 took off my soiled garments and placed them upon me, namely, an undervest and a doublet of fine linen, a robe, a surcoat, and a mantle of yellow satin, with a broad gold band upon the mantle. They placed cushions both beneath me and around me, with coverings of red linen, and I sat down. Now the 6 maidens who had taken my horse unharnessed him as well as if they had been the best squires in the island of Britain. Then behold, they brought bowls of silver wherein was to wash, towels of linen, some green and some white, and I washed. And in the little while the man sat down to the table, I sat down next to him. Below me sat all the maidens, except those who were waited upon us, and the table was of silver. The cloths upon the table were linen, and no vessel was served upon the table that was not either gold, silver, or buffalo horn, and our meat was brought to us. Verily, Kai, I saw there every sort of meat, every sort of liquor that I have ever seen elsewhere. But the meat and the liquor were better served there than I have ever seen them in any other place. Until the repast was half over, neither the man nor any one of the damsels spoke a word to me. But when the man perceived that it would be more agreeable to me to converse than to eat any more, he began to inquire of me who I was. I said I was glad to find there was someone who would discourse with me, and that it was not considered so great a crime at that court for people to hold conversation together over a meal. Chieftain, said the man, we would have talked to thee sooner, but we feared to disturb thee during thy repast. Now, however, we will discourse. Then I told the man who I was, and what the cause was of my journey, and I said that I was seeking where any one was superior to me, or where I could gain the mastery over it all. The man looked upon me and smiled, and said, I did not fear to distress thee so much. I would show thee what thou seekest. Upon this I became anxious and sorrowful, and when the man perceived it, he said, If thou wouldst rather I show thee thy disadvantage than thine advantage, I will do so. Sleep here tonight, and in the morning arise early, and take the road upwards through the valley until thou reachest the wood through which thou camest hither. A little way within the wood thou wilt meet with a road branching off to the right, by which thou must proceed, until thou comest to a large sheltered glade with a mound in the centre. And thou wilt see the black man of great stature upon the mound. He is not smaller in size than the 2 men of this world. He is but 1 foot and 1 eye in the middle of his forehead, and he has a club of iron. And it's certain there's no 2 men in the world who would not find their burden in that club. And he is not a comely man, but on the contrary, he is exceedingly ill-favoured. Yes. And he is the woodward of that wood. And thou wilt see 1,000 wild animals grazing around him. Inquire of him the way out of the glade, and he will reply to thee briefly, and will point out the road by which thou shalt find which thou art in quest of. And long seemed that night to me. And then in the next morning I rose and equipped myself and mounted by my horse. I proceeded straight through the valley to the wood, and I followed the crossroad which the old man had pointed out to me, till at length I arrived at the glade, and there I was 3 times more astonished at the number of wild animals I beheld, and the man that had said I should be. And the man was sitting upon the top of the mound, huge of stature as the man had told me that he was. I found him to be exceeded far the description that he'd given me of him. But for the iron club which the man had told me was a burden for 2 men, I am certain, Kai, that it would be very heavy for 4 warriors to lift, and there it was in this man's hand, and he only spoke to me in answer to my questions. Then I asked him what power he held over these animals. He said, I will show thee, little man. And he took his club to his hand, and he struck at a stag a great blow so hard he brayed vehemently, and at his brain the animals came together, as numerous as the stars in the sky, so that it was difficult for me to find room in the glade to stand among them. There were serpents, and there were dragons, and divers sorts of animals, and he looked at them and bade them go and freed, and they bowed their heads and did him homage as vassals to their lord. And then the man said to me, Seest thou now, little man, what power I hold over these animals? Then I inquired of him the way, and he became very rough in his manner to me. However, he asked me whether I would go. And when I told him who I was and what I sought, he directed me. Take, he said, that path that leads toward the head of the glade, and ascend the wooded step until thou comest to its summit, and there thou wilt find an open space like to a large valley, and in the midst of it a large tree, whose branches are greener than the greenest pine trees. Under this tree is a fountain, and by the side of this fountain a marble slab, and on the marble slab a silver bowl is attached by a chain of silver, so that it may not be carried away. Take the bowl and throw a bowl full of water upon the slab, and thou wilt hear a mighty peal of thunder, so that thou wilt think that the heaven and earth are trembling with its fury. And with the thunder there will come a shower so severe that it will be scarce possible for thee to endure it and live. And the shower will be of hailstones, and after the shower the weather will become fair. I mean, this just sounds like a normal day in Britain, but let's keep going. But every leaf that was upon the tree will have been carried away by the shower. Then a flight of birds will come and alight upon the tree, and in thine own country thou didst ever hear a strain so sweet as what that they will sing. And at the moment thou art most delighted with the song of the birds, thou wilt hear a murmuring and coming towards thee along the valley, and thou wilt see a knight upon a coal-black horse, clothed in black velvet and with a pennon. Don't know what that is. Right, pennon, feather of black linen upon his lance, and he will ride unto thee to encounter thee with the utmost speed. If thou fleest from him, he will overtake thee, and if thou abidest there, as sure as thou art a mounted knight, he will leave thee on foot, and if thou dost not find trouble in that adventure, thou needest not seek it during the rest of thy life. So I journeyed on until I reached the summit of the step, and there I found everything as the black man had described to me. And I went up to the tree, and beneath it I saw the fountain, and by its side the marble slab, and the silver bowl fastened by the chain. Then I took the bowl and cast a bowlful of water on the slab. Thereupon, behold, the thunder came, more violent than the man had led me to expect. And after the thunder came the shower. And of a truth I tell thee, Kai, there is neither man nor beast that can endure a shower and live, for not one of those hailstones would be stopped either by flesh or by skin until it had reached the bone. I turned my horse's flank towards the shower and placed the beak of my shield over his head and neck, whilst I held the upper part of it over my own head. And thus I withstood the shower. When I looked upon the tree, there was not a single leaf upon it. And then the sky became clear, and with that, behold, the birds lighted upon the tree and sang. And truly, Kai, I have never heard any melody equal to that, either before or since. Then, when I was most charmed with listening to the birds, lo, a murmuring voice was heard through the valley, approaching me, saying, O night, what has brought thee hither? What evil have I done to thee, that thou should act towards me and my possessions, as thou hast this day? Dost thou not know that the shower to-day has left my dominions, neither man nor beast alive that was exposed to it? And thereupon a knight on a black horse appeared, clothed in jet black velvet, and with a tabard of black linen about him. And we charged each other, and as the onset was furious, it was not long before I was overthrown. Then the knight passed the shaft of his lance through the bridle rein of my horse and rode off with the two horses, leaving me where I was. And he did not even bestow so much notice upon me as to imprison me, nor did he despoil me of my arms. So I returned upon the road by which I had come. And then when I reached the glade where the man was, I confess to thee, Kai, it is a marvel that I did not melt down into a liquid pool, through the shame that I felt in this guy's duration. And that night I came to the same castle which I had spent the night preceding, and I was more agreeably entertained that night than I had been the night before, and was better feasted, and I conversed freely with all the inmates of the castle, and none of them alluded to my expedition to the mountain. Neither did I mention it to any, and I remained there that night. When I rose in the morning, I found saddled a dark bay palfrey with nostrils as red as scarlet, and after putting on my armour and leaving there my blessing, I returned to my own court. And that horse I still possess, and he is in the stable yonder. And I declare that I would not part from him for the best palfrey in the island of Britain. Now of a truth, Kai, no man has ever before confessed to an adventure, so much to his own discredit, and so verily it seems strange to me that neither before nor since have I heard of any person beside myself who knew of this adventure, and that the subject of it should exist within King Arthur's dominions, without any other person lighting upon it. Now, quoth Owen, would it not be well to go and endeavour to discover that place? By the hand of my friend, said Kai, oft dost thou utter that with thy tongue which thou wouldst not make good with thy deeds. In very truth, said Gwilvar, it were better thou wert hanged, Kai, than to use such uncourteous speech towards a man like Owain. By the hand of my friend, my good lady, said Kai, thy praise of Owain is not greater than mine. And with that Arthur awoke, and asked if he had not been sleeping a little. Yes, lord, answered Owain, thou hast slept a while. And is it time for us to go to meat? It is, lord, said Owain. And that, I think I will pause it, because it's a long story.